Yeah, you're last. So.
Tell me the bad news.
It's always nice to see a well-caffeinated crowd.
Our next session is on social enterprise, and it's going to be moderated by Steven Moe of Parafield Lawyers. Steven always strikes me as the most, or the best connected person in New Zealand when it comes to social enterprise. He's a great doc joiner, and also a great cheerleader for the social enterprise and the emergence of this, and more discussion around social enterprise in New Zealand. So, looking at one of the newer paradigms that impacts our charity space. Steven, over to you.
Kia ora koutou, ko Steven Moe no Kotahi Ao. It's wonderful to be here to be able to chair this session. We have an amazing set of speakers with a diverse range of viewpoints. We're going to be talking about impact companies, I mentioned yesterday. I think the term social enterprise is a great one as a stepping stone between where we've been and where we're going. But really thinking about impact is what we're about. If you could look on your tables, you'll see that Te Papa has given us some note paper. What's written on the top of the note paper? It says head plus heart, doesn't it? And I think that really encapsulates what social enterprise is about. It's taking the heart of charity and the head of business and uniquely combining them. In the old paradigm, we thought they had to be split. You acted with your heart or with your head. The new paradigm is there's a way that we can combine them. And that's what we're going to be hearing about from our panelists today. But just before we jump into that, I'm holding here an avocado. For those of you who can see it. I know lunchtime is coming. But I have some suggestions for what we could make from this avocado that would be delicious.
Guacamole.
Guacamole, yeah, that's a good one. Chocolate mousse, okay. Why not? Sushi. Yeah, sushi, yeah, that's right. So there's a lot of potential in this avocado, isn't there? A lot of amazing potential for our bodies to get nutrients from. And what's the true potential of this avocado? The true potential is the seed that's within the avocado. If you take that seed, and if you actually get, this is a real thing, you get toothpicks, you put it in the seed, you put it in some water, it will actually start to grow. And if I had it with me, I would bring a little avocado tree that I've grown from something just like this. And the reason I give that little picture, because I think pictures are so valuable, word pictures and images, is what we're doing here is how can we provide the right ingredients, the right soil, the right conditions to help people grow good ideas. And I think traditionally we may have limited ourselves to only talking about charity at a conference like this, but what we want to do is expand our horizons a little bit and think about business as a means for doing good as well. So we've got amazing speakers. I'm not going to read out bios or anything because they're all in your book. And I think what we'll do is just get straight into it, and there will be questions after that. So if I could ask Louise Aiken from Akina Foundation to come up and kick us off about social enterprise in New Zealand.
Kia ora tātou, ka Louise Karakurua, ko Akina Foundation tuku mahi, mō Puniki Ahau, tēnā koutou katoa. Yeah, I'm privileged to be back actually. I was here a year ago, and this morning I was thinking about what's happened in a year. And I'm going to talk about a couple of those things, but also really reinforcing what Steven has been saying about the role that enterprise with impact, social enterprise, community enterprise, whatever the term that you want to use is, the role that it has in adding solutions to our economy, to our society, and to our environment. So a year ago I couldn't give you this number, I probably estimated it. So thanks to our friends at the Department of Internal Affairs, we are able to say how many social enterprises we now believe are in New Zealand. 3,711 is the number that I am repeating very loudly, contributing over $1 billion to the New Zealand economy. So this is all based on Bill research, so it's not something that we just picked out from the Arcana thing. If it was, we'd be $2 billion, I think. But the one thing that we're missing from this slide, of course, is so what? What's the impact that they deliver? And that's really the fundamental focus of the work that we're doing, is how do we start to value impact that's been achieved through enterprise, which is benefiting our society and our planet. This is a great start, and what we've been doing over the last year is working with the Department of Internal Affairs and lots of other stakeholders. We've got 13 ministries that are benefiting from social enterprise. And so every month we pull those ministries together, it's like herding cats a bit, and we talk about what is the role of social enterprise when it comes to social development, when it comes to Māori development, when it comes to the environment, whether it's conservation, whether it's around primary industries. How do we unlock the potential that sits within a pretty organic, what has been seen as quite a small sector of our economy, to be able to provide solutions? And the one thing that has happened, I think, that's the most important for us over the last year as a sector is what I call our superpower, which is the living standards framework. People overseas are extremely jealous of the New Zealand social enterprise sector to have such a framework that hopefully we can work within, to be able to articulate our impact across the 4 capitals means that we can be recognised as delivering more than just the economic benefit. So there's a long way to go within that. I don't know if you've got a topic on the living standards framework here in this conference, but for us it's a starting point about how do we recognise the benefit that not only social enterprise is delivering, but certainly within the charitable space, in the language and the consistent language that government will start using. And that's a significant powerhouse for us as a sector, which we're really excited about. And working with Treasury and Statistics New Zealand, etc., to try and understand how we can translate that into a more economic view for non-government entities to use, which is very exciting. So the other thing that we've been working on is the creation of markets for social enterprise. I think this time last year I talked about the work that we're doing with New Zealand Post. We trialled out how a big organisation like that can bring social procurement into their mainstream procurement processes. How can they understand what procurement with purpose means for them as a business, buying the goods and services that they're already buying? Their CEO, David, stood up about 18 months ago at the Social Enterprise World Forum that we hosted in Christchurch, and committed to bringing 3 social enterprises into New Zealand Post's supply chain in the first year. We smashed that target, as we always do, and we helped them deliver 6 into that supply chain. And what that enabled was not only them understanding the processes that needed to change, the change management within their personnel, the celebration that you can now have through procurement activity, which is anyone from procurement would probably be unaware of that, but really celebrating the fact that procurement is a significant lever for not only employee satisfaction, not only helping business to be able to achieve its goals, but also to demonstrate to the society and hopefully to the planet that actually what you buy matters. So what we've done since then is we've launched a procurement program called Forward. We've now got 14 members of the buyer group. Their purchasing power is 30 billion. So this is not the tiny little organisations that buy a couple of things, getting catering, etc. This is Fonterra, this is Air New Zealand, ANZ, SAP, all coming together to understand how to unlock this power of procurement. It will develop the markets for social enterprises and impact enterprises to be able to sell the goods and services. It's highly important for us to make sure that that support is given on both sides, both the buyer and the supplier. What we do is certify the social enterprises to reduce risk from the buyer standpoint. We've got 43 social enterprises already certified, delivering 53 categories. So So, and it's not just the catering, it's not just the uniforms, it's payroll services, it's waste management, it's legal and accounting support. It's organisations who understand the strength of the activities that they do and have a social or environmental purpose locked in on that. So we will continue to see this number grow. We will continue to see more businesses move towards social procurement and understand its potential in line with their charitable giving, in line with their corporate social responsibility. But this will have 100-fold more impact than any corporate social responsibility program ever will. So this is something that we've seen internationally, and now we're very excited to have it here in New Zealand. So the last thing I'm going to talk about in my final 26 seconds is the legacy of the work that we're doing. And I don't say that term frankly. When we joined partnership with the Department of Internal Affairs, we knew it was the opportunity to fundamentally change the foundations and the support for the social enterprise sector. Next week we're launching a report which will hopefully enable that. And we're very excited for the support from 3 law firms, including Steven, Russell McVeigh, Chapman Tripp, and the Law Foundation, in getting us to this point. It's a long way to go because the opportunity is to work with central government on how we unlock the potential that sits within our legal structures to support impact enterprise. So look out for it next Wednesday. It's under embargo at the moment, so I can't share it. But it will be launched across the media at about 8 o'clock in the morning, and we know we will have a lot of conversation about it. It is really exciting to think that government are open to a conversation and really in line with the living standards framework. How can we change how normal businesses run to actually bring impact into the heart of that? So hopefully a year from now, I will be able to give you an update about how potential legislation change is happening. But in a year, it's been a very exciting time for us and something that we cannot do alone. So I would like to thank everyone from Sue, Steven, many in this room who have been along the journey with us over the last year, and I look forward to giving you an update in a year's time. So, kia ora.
Well, that was fantastic. Thank you, Louise, for that overview of what's happening. There's a lot happening, which is really exciting. And I happen to know that you were interviewed for a podcast that goes for about 90 minutes telling your life stories, so check that out. Now we are really fortunate. We couldn't bring her from America, but Dana Brakeman-Reeser is joining us via Zoom. So she's the author of a textbook, co-author of a textbook, Social Enterprise Law, and that text was actually quite influential for me in my own thinking when I was helping out with the report that Louise mentioned. So I'd like to hand over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Everyone hear me, I hope. I'm just going to jump in since the time I've been allotted is short. No one's waving me off. So I've been asked to give an overview of social enterprise in the United States, particularly the legal questions. And I want to just start off by recognizing that social enterprise is really a pretty contested term, but my focus is on for-profit businesses that are pursuing both profits for owners as well as social good, and they might do so through a variety of models, whether it be innovation or employment or give back or some other kind of model that joins both profits for owners and social good generation. The work that I've done asserts that the fundamental problem that the law can help social enterprises with is really a trust problem, that social entrepreneurs need to be able to trust that investors are committed to their mission in order to access capital and scale up. Investors in social enterprises need to trust that they're not being suckered and that the entrepreneurs and managers are going to actually pursue that social mission and not just, somehow access cheap money and run away with it or be lazy. This concern about creating enforceable mission commitments is a place where I think the law can help, although the path that U.S. law, at least public law, has gone down thus far, I don't think is quite sufficient to the task. So the traditional forms for enterprises in the U.S. are somewhat lacking in providing these assurances about mission and commitment between entrepreneurs and investors. Of course, nonprofit forms under our law are unsuitable because they include a non-distribution constraint. Profits can't be distributed to owners, so this kind of blended business model won't work. For-profit forms are suitable for generating profits for owners, of course, but they only work as long as investors remain mission committed. They don't offer protection for social mission, although both for-profit corporate and limited liability company forms permit a lot of discretion on the part of leadership as long as investors agree to pursue goals other than shareholder value maximization. If shareholders or investors in an LLC become disenchanted with social mission and push for more profit generation, they can ultimately be successful. So it is difficult to provide this kind of assurances in the traditional forms. So a whole range of specialized legal forms have been developed in the US to try to provide greater assurances. The first mover here was called the Low Profit Limited Liability Company. It was a spin on an ordinary LLC. It did a few things. It required the entity to pursue a charitable or educational purpose, but only for so long as it desired to do so. And if the activities of the low-profit limited liability company veered away from that charitable or educational mission, then it just turned into a regular LLC. And there was no regulatory involvement, no transparency around that, no penalty for doing so. So it didn't really provide that kind of enforceable commitment. It was pretty popular for the first year or two. A bunch of states adopted this idea, but then it ran out of steam fairly quickly. More successful has been the benefit corporation, which is now available under the law of about 30 US states. So for example, Texas has a benefit corporation statute. A company in any US state can incorporate as a benefit corporation under the Texas benefit corporation statute. They don't have to be resident in Texas to do that. What benefit corporation statutes require adopting entities to do is, again, a bit of a tweak on the standard form, the corporate form in this case, but they make more changes. So first off is around the purpose requirement. Benefit corporations must pursue a general public benefit, which is defined as a material positive impact on society and the environment, assessed against a third-party standard. So that means that the benefit corporation itself must use some third-party standard to attest to its general public benefit. It doesn't require any kind of outside certification, but it does require them to use some kind of outside ruler to measure themselves. Fiduciaries also are required to consider stakeholders and not just shareholder interests, although they're not required to prioritize the interests of stakeholders. In order to exit benefit corporation form, there's a supermajority requirement. Supermajority of shareholders must agree, and there are shareholder and public disclosure requirements. This is sometimes confused with a private certification offered by the nonprofit B Lab called B Corp certification. The benefit corporation is a state law form of organization, whereas B Corp is a private certification. I'll just mention that Delaware entered this fray in 2013 with its own spin on the benefit corporation called the Public Benefit Corporation. It's slightly different than the standard benefit corporation statute, but since Delaware tends to have an outsized role in American corporate law, that's a notable entry. So there have been a lot of laws in a lot of states, but not a lot of uptake by actual organizations. The most recent study we have here is from 2018, which shows fewer than 7,500 entities nationwide are actually using one of these forms. Now there are many, many more social enterprises than that. They don't just seem to be using these specialized forms. I think it's really because the forms don't do a great job of bridging this trust deficit. They both feature kind of unilateral opt-outs, where either the manager is in an L3C or in a benefit corporation or a Delaware public benefit corporation. The shareholders can kind of unilaterally force a change to remove the mission commitment. And there's really limited enforcement. Investors are the only enforcement actors here, and those are the ones we're worried about in a lot of these cases. and disclosure compliance is dismal. None of the studies we have show a compliance rate for these disclosure obligations of even 10%. So it's possible that we can improve legislation here in the US, provide emission prioritization mandate, put in place resources to create an enforcement architecture, but I doubt that will happen. I also worry that kind of propping up these forms might create a backlash where traditional corporations, which currently have a lot of flexibility to pursue social interests, would find that discretion narrowed. So my own view is that a lot of private ordering is the better solution here. And in the book that Steven mentioned, I articulate a lot of different opportunities where lawyers and deal makers can help provide these mutual assurances of mission commitment between entrepreneurs and investors. So far, that's the view from the US. I hope that's around the time that I was supposed to speak for. Thank you very much.
That was great. Thank you so much for that. And I think the quality of the speakers that we've been getting at this conference has been incredible. Just shown by that. I'd like to move now to Kay Marie Dunn. And I think with social enterprise in New Zealand, we have a unique opportunity to craft something which is world-leading. And one of the distinctive things, which has actually been mentioned several times in this conference, is Te Ao Māori. And so what I've asked Kay Marie to talk about is her perspective on social enterprise, because I think there's a richness and a wealth there that we could be tapping into. So over to you.
Kia ora tātou katoa. Tuatahi he mihi tēnei kia koutou, ko tau mai no ngā hauewha. I whāho tōku pāpā he uri tēnei no te tautokero, no te rarawa Ngāpuhi Ngā Te Kahu. Tōku māma he uri ia no Pauratu Tainu Ngā Te Mahanga, no Ngai Tā Mauhiri, no Ngā Te Kahu Nunu. Tēnā tātou katoa. My name is Kay Marie, and today I'm going to speak from a range of different perspectives. The very first port tie that I'm going to wear is the Special Projects Manager for Māori Women's Development Inc. Our organisation has been in existence for 31 years, and we've been committed to supporting wahine Māori and their whānau through the provision of finance, in particular low interest loans, and we've now developed a series of programs in business and financial capability. We also focus in on rangatahi. For the last 4 years that I've been with the organisation, we've also taken a significant direction as an organisation to explore social enterprise, because 80% of the wahine that we're connecting with in our communities are talking about not just social enterprise, but oranga, well-being. And so with that frame, we are having to adjust ourselves to explore, well, what does oranga look like from not just the Te Ao Māori perspective, but actually how do we create enterprises or pākihi whai kaupapa, businesses that follow purpose, that one, as Stephen mentioned earlier, is about being successful and sustainable in business. Two, the ngākau, the heart, how is it that we can enable our aroha for our people to be enhanced. And then the third addition to what's on top of your pads today is the wairua. So how do we invoke and enable spirituality among our people to flourish? And that connects itself to regeneration. So how can social enterprise be utilised as an instrument to help regenerate and heal our communities, and also be utilised as an opportunity to heal and support us as humanity on this planet with very scarce resources. So part and parcel of our work, first and foremost, is a partnership with Ākina, because we believe, one, we don't have the expertise to be all things to all people, so it's really important that we forge a strong relationship with Ākina. Secondly, we then co-created a pathway forward as part of the Social Enterprise Development Plan to really explore, well, what does social enterprise actually mean to Māori? Because as my colleague has spoken earlier around the importance of social enterprise and the significant contribution to our economy, perhaps Māori don't have a different perspective. And one of those perspectives in particular is that social enterprise is not actually new. We've actually been doing social good, looking after the well-being of our people for as long as we've been here in Aotearoa. So is it that Māori Dim are finding social enterprise as a term different? Or is it something that's still semi-foreign to us as a people because it's actually business as usual and it's actually what we do and how we run? So that's been really interesting for us to navigate. And then last year I was privileged to help coordinate a national series of hui, of community conversations around what does social enterprise mean to you, what type of support do you require as a Māori social entrepreneur, and what kind of support do you require to enable your mahi to flourish. So our people, there were around 500 participants across 15 national hui, said three things. One, a by Māori for Māori, yet to benefit all, is a great approach for our communities. They don't want people to fly into their communities, tell them how to do things and then take off afterwards. So secondly, that leads to capability building. How are we able to strengthen and support Māori to develop their social enterprises in a way that works for them? And thirdly, access to capital. So we may all know that the current philanthropic mechanisms, capital mechanisms, is not necessarily broad enough to support a different direction in enterprise that incorporates te reo Māori, our values as a people, as well as our aspirations to support the people that need the most, as well as solve some significant wicked problems. So the second dimension that I'm really proud to talk about today from the NWTI is that we see problems and we work hard to solve them. So access to capital has been a significant issue, so we partnered up with Pledge Me and we co-created an Indigenous platform called Tākoha, which is an education program to support our people to understand how to utilise the power of our crowd to create capital opportunities to grow enterprises at grassroots level. So that's a bit about us. I've got the final 2 minutes and now switch for a moment and now speak about this from an entrepreneurial perspective as a co-founder of a blockchain startup called Aho. Now Aho is an Indigenous digital identity platform. Our aim is to enable our people to connect with each other using whakapapa, but actually to be able to utilise this digital platform and utilising blockchain to help increase and enhance trust and to help support us to have a greater relationship with our tribes. Now when I think about the law and how it has served me as an entrepreneur, considering all the things that I know and all the relationships and connections that I have, has it enabled me and my co-founders to create a constitution that not only incorporates our values, but actually enables us to be able to operate our social enterprise from a te reo Māori perspective. What does that actually look like? So you can put your values inside your constitution, but when you bake it into the DNA of your organisation and then try to actualise that, what does that actually look like? Now I really have to say thank you to Steven because he has been gracious to support me in my thinking around this. But we have to ask ourselves, is the law at this point in time enabling and supporting Māori to create the vision that we have for ourselves at a community level, but also enable our tikanga to be able to flourish? And it's very hard because we're not a homogenous people. So our hapu, our whānau, we all have our different practices, but how can the law enable us, not only protect us, but actually enable us to have a mechanism and an instrument that supports us to do business and enterprise in the way that we need and that is fitting for us as people. Finally, I have to mihi to a good friend, Nahu Davis, who always puts a wheel or challenge out to the people. He says, who's not in the room? So there are 200 people here, and from a wide range of sectors, but I'm also mindful, and I just have to mihi to the Māori that are in here, but in regards to our people being present in these spaces, my question to you is how are you enabling, utilising your privilege to create meaningful partnerships within our communities so that our people are not just recipients of the law, recipients of charity, but actually true partners in enabling us to make adequate decisions to support our communities to thrive. So just want to think about that, leave that with you today. My final part is really, Māori social enterprise is growing, and I have to again thank Ākina for giving us the space and the opportunity to showcase some of the most significant, fastest growing businesses that I've had the privilege of working with, because we've put intensive wraparound support, tools, templates, but the one piece that we still need to unlock is capital. So the other part is my journey with Ākina and through Māori Women's Development Inc. is that all of the amazing initiatives that are coming to our attention, my number one priority is how do we open the door and open up the opportunity for Māori to participate. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, kia ora tātou katoa.
Thank you so much. That was great. I love the challenge. I think we can all apply that to whatever circumstances we're in. That's really wonderful. Next up, we have Holly Norton, who's one of the co-founders of Collaborate. And the reason I asked her to speak to you is that she's struggled. Is she a social enterprise, or should she be a charity? How do you go about making that sort of decision? So I'd love to hear what you have to say, Holly. Thank you.
Hi everybody, thank you for letting me come on today and share our story. So as mentioned, Collaborate is a social enterprise. The easiest way to describe what Collaborate is it's essentially Tinder for volunteering. We match volunteers and anyone in the community who has skills, who has passion, who has time with community groups, organizations, any individual who is doing a social good who could use those time and skills. Currently, we are a limited liability company. However, we're 100% volunteer run. We're currently non-profit, and mostly are not really generating the revenue to run our enterprise entirely at this point in time, although we have revenue streams that are sort of starting to build up. So it seems like a bit of a weird place to sit, being a limited liability company who is a purpose-driven business run by volunteers. So I thought I'd basically just give you a bit of a picture of our journey, because we've probably spent hundreds of hours debating what that we should be and the choices we've made along the way, and then a bit of the trade-offs that we're kind of making in that decision. So the reason we started out was essentially me when I was 22 was volunteering for this peace and conflict resolution charity. We offered refugee support programs in New Zealand, and it was at the time that the refugee crisis was in the media in about 2015. There was all of this, how can we help, how can we support, and then I was sitting in an organisation that had programs that was trying to support, and we just couldn't operate because we didn't have enough volunteers. So there's this really obvious disconnect. There's people who want to help, and there's people who can offer services and finances to do that, and it wasn't connecting. So essentially I started a meetup group. The meetup group grew from about 7 youth charities back in the day. And after a while we sort of looked at these kind of platform economies and things that were taking off, Tinder and Uber, and we thought instead of having meetings once we go over on day jobs, if we could just tap into that and we could just build this tech platform that had that speed and easy connection, how awesome would that be to bring us all together? So at that time we had no idea about A, building a tech product, or B, hadn't even thought about the legal implications of what we might be about to undertake. And essentially, we went out there and started talking about it. That group of 7 people grew to being about 400 people over about 18 months involved in shaping and designing this product. The very first choice that we had to make is when we realized that we were ready to build a product. We had this designs all kind of drawn up, 400 people behind us, and we wanted to go into an accelerator program or some way that we could get it built. We kind of looked around at grant funding. We figured out the best way was actually to join an accelerator here at Harvard, but in order to do that, we had to be a business, which didn't really seem to fit what we were doing, because at that point in time, it was 400 volunteers giving their time to build something we all thought we were passionate about. But we did it, and we registered as a business. It was the fastest and easiest thing to do. And then we came out at the end of that accelerator, and this accelerator tends to kind of prep you to do, you kind of prep for investment. So we're like, all right, well, this seems the next step. We now have this matching platform, and the next stage is this really awesome community organization volunteer management platform, but that's going to cost us about $400,000 to build. So investment seems the logical next step, and maybe we can monetize that. So we went through about 3 months of going through investment negotiations, and basically at the end of it just realized that in order to monetize a platform like that, 90% of the charities in New Zealand are small. The rate that you can charge charities to use the platform like that, you're just not going to get a high enough returns on investment for basically a bunch of, at this point, 25-year-old girls to raise $400,000 in capital with no proven business experience. So After those negotiations, we went, look, the most realistic way to do this is just going to be a full charity. That's fine by us. We're not in it for the personal gain. We're in it because this is what we're passionate about and we see this need. So we're like, yeah, we're going to register as a charity. We'll just figure out a few things along the way. And in the process of while we've been sitting in that, deciding about transition to being a charity, getting support from people like Steven around, what would that transition actually look like and how should we structure ourselves? We then realised that we actually did have a business opportunity that was much more relevant, sort of on our doorstep. Have I?
Okay, just keep going.
Okay. Sorry, I talk so much. So that was in the fact that it was corporate volunteering, so corporates were knocking on our doors and saying they wanted to use the platform. And that was the first time we went, hey, there's people here who have the capital, who can actually fund what we're doing, who can fund the technology that we need to build, and we can create a really effective revenue model around that. But in order to actually run that, we probably want to stay as a limited liability company for a bunch of reasons. So now what we're doing is sitting within that, testing out that revenue model, and exploring and making a call in about 6 months based on how much revenue we're able to generate from that new business model, whether we actually go full charity and just accept that, or whether we actually have a limited liability company that is owned in part by a charity so that we can protect our values by gifting a lot of the shares towards that. To do and set up that structure looks like it's going to cost us about $30,000 to $40,000 is kind of the quotes that we got, so it's not something we can jump into, we have to do a bit of research. And I guess the other kind of caveat that I would put around our decision making is that because of what we do being this sort of technology solution, we're not an easy fit for grant money either. You know, if you're knocking on people's doors asking for hundreds of thousands of dollars to build fancy technology, it's not the kind of outcome-driven grants that typically sit in the charity sector. So essentially, self-generating revenue model is our number one way to go, and it's just how do we set that up, protect our values, whilst maintaining this image of efficiency that will help our business, but also building that trust that we are purpose-driven. That's the reason that we're there with the charities that we support, which is about 320 across 3 countries now. So yeah, that's a bit of a picture.
That's great, thank you so much. And I think you can hear there, can't you, the tension between the different options and how do you choose which way do you go. And I encourage those of you in the room who aren't familiar with Square, why don't you Google them, find them, because they are offering this amazing opportunity for charities to connect with willing volunteers. And I think I heard a podcast with you as well. So our final speaker is Andrew Phillips, and he's going to give us perspective from charity services.
Thank you, Stephen. Now we go from these great social enterprises and to put back on the mantle of Queen Elizabeth I and go back into the charities world and try and give a little bit of an explanation of the boundary between charity and social enterprise, where there's potential and where there's some limits. So as we've heard, social enterprise can take many different forms, but what all these forms seem to have in common is that they combine a desire to achieve social good with commercial methods. And as there is many shades of grey in this space, especially between charity and social enterprise, it would be useful to define 3 main types that I want to talk about. First, charity fundraising businesses. So we've talked about those a lot in this conference so far, but they're the ones with unrelated businesses with activities to fundraise, but they're registered as charities. So I'm talking about like an op shop connected with an environmental group, or maybe a breakfast cereal company connected to the church. Second, there are charities that operate as businesses. These are groups that use commercial methods, but they achieve charitable purposes through those methods. And so think of a university that advances education, or a hospital that promotes health. Finally, as we've been talking about, there are social enterprises that are structured in some way to do good to them, whether it's in their constitution or in their way of operating, but they also allow for private profit. Now, in New Zealand, unlike other common law jurisdictions, well, not all common law jurisdictions, but some common law jurisdictions, charities have for a long time been able to carry out unrelated businesses to advance their purposes through fundraising. There are some limitations when it comes to tax benefits to the funds that are applied internationally, but fundraising for charitable purposes has essentially been accepted as a charitable purpose in and of itself. But for a social enterprise to qualify as a charity, it can't provide private profit to an individual or an organisation as an independent purpose. It can pay an organisation or an individual market rates for a service, but no one can draw down dividends or other compensation driven by its profitability. Although, as we know, social enterprises often include entities that don't operate with hopes of significant dividends or profits, the owners might want to build up capital in the enterprise to look at selling it in the future or scale up rapidly at some time in its operation. But social enterprises can become charitable by excluding profit through its constitution or trust deed and consequently be registered as a charity. This does involve some limitations. Once you are charitable, you can't just decide to exit the charitable sector and become a for-profit group without some consequences. On deregistration, a charity is subject to inland revenue rules related to the disposal of assets. And in cases where there is an indication that a deregistered charity intends to make a profit, charity services may make a referral to the Attorney General, who as protector of charities can seek to have that all the assets applied for charitable purposes. Despite these limitations, we know that there are a lot of businesses operating as charities. I think someone said yesterday that the Textbook report says something like 30% of charities have trading arms, which is quite a significant number. We know there are 1,000 limited companies on our register and a similar number that report trading in their annual reports. But in practice, this line between a social enterprise that profits individuals and a charity can be grayer than it seems. The promotion of social enterprise itself is charitable. Oonagh is a registered charity in New Zealand, and that's because Oonagh seeks to improve the social enterprise industry for the benefit of the public rather than the industry itself. Fair trade is another good example, as it seeks to improve for-profit industries so that they can help the most vulnerable and use sustainable methods. Charities can also benefit for-profit businesses in many different ways. They support businesses through constructing ramps to improve accessibility, or support them to reduce waste or improve environmental outcomes. In deprived regions, supporting businesses directly to bolster the region's economy can be charitable. And there's no issue, there's usually no issue with these kind of entities registering as a charity. One issue that does arise that's very controversial is when the applicants have applied with a fundraising purpose, but also have a clear purpose to carry out the business activities that purpose in and of itself. A good example is the Karmic Charitable Trust that was declined by the Charities Commission before Charity Services and the Charity Registration Board came along. Here, a charity sought to raise funds from selling cupcakes and t-shirts, but indicated that its officers would be making significant salaries. And after that, there was no information provided that the trust would ever make a profit. A similar situation arose with the Sutherland Charitable Trust, where the charity loaned a large amount of money to a related business for the purpose of raising funds, but there was no evidence that the private business would ever be able to pay the charity back. And in fact, many of the businesses had already gone into liquidation, and the charity continued to prop up those businesses with its charitable funding. The public benefit the charity is registered for is to fundraise for charitable purposes, so there must be some indication that a profit is possible through its activities. Most charities won't struggle to establish this, but often when the business is new and doesn't exist as part of a pre-established structure, like an iwi structure, and there's no evidence that the business will do anything but exist for itself, there might be more evidence needed before they can register. As I trust is evidence, these issues get quite complicated, and the questions of balancing public and private benefits are more usefully considered on a case-by-case basis rather than thinking of these principles. And we have to really consider carefully those planned activities of the group. As previously mentioned, if the charitable business is not set up for a fundraising purpose, possible in university-type examples, it wouldn't need to demonstrate it can raise funds, just that its activities are connected with a charitable purpose. Takeaway messages for most social enterprises is that if you want to be a charity, you can, it just comes with some limitations. You won't be able to profit from your activities, and you genuinely have to be set up for advancing a charitable purpose. I'm also conscious, with 30 seconds remaining, that the approach of the Independent Charities Registration Board and Charity Services in how the law is applied in this area isn't agreed with by all professionals, and it's one of the many issues that's currently being dealt with as part by the policy group as part of the modernisation of the Charities Act. And if you, this is a really good opportunity. If you disagree with this approach, or think that things should change, or even if you think the approach makes sense, I encourage you to make a submission. This is a good opportunity. Although it's not a first principles review into the Charities Act, it's still a really great opportunity to kind of, in these really thorny areas, to change the way we do things for the better of everyone. So that's me. Thank you very much.